Alright, time for the next video. I'm mostly just cranking these out back to back to get them done so I don't have to deal with them again. Alright, third video, crime and trust. See, crime is bad. I know, controversial opinion. But why? Let's actually examine that. So, what does crime do? Particularly in relation to trust. Let's say a thief steals money. So you have, I accidentally overcolored them, so now they have a full-on mask. Right, there's the little bandana. By little, I mean it's covering the entire face. I am bad at drawing, so. We have a thief. And they steal. Let's say $800 for the sake of ease. From store. This store shall be, now that I'm thinking about pens, the pen store. It's now the pen store. Why? Because I'm lazy. Anyways, back to the point. So, let's look at the results of this. So, I'm going to try to actually draw a bandana this time, so it's not just covering the entire face. Because, man, did I suck at the drawing. So what does he get? Well, he does get $800. Technically. The theft technically provides him the 800. But what are the downsides for him? Well, his opinion that others hold of him goes down, and his reputation. Furthermore, he is now a legal criminal. So, with this, you have the basis for crime degrading trust. If a person in your community, let's say it's your neighbor, steals from someone you know, or an entity you know, a store, well, the result is you no longer trust them as much, you don't think of them as highly, and they're now legally a criminal, and so you can't help them legally, making it less likely for you to do so. See, crime lowers trust. Yeah, I know, follow along. Anyways, see, crime lowers trust. Now, that should be obvious. If people are just stealing from each other, there's very little trust to be had. But it's hard to understate how important that is. For example, let's imagine a totally lawless society. When I say lawless, I'm thinking libertarian sense, not in the terms of, absolute anarchy. So, high trust is prosperous. See, when everyone trusts each other to not steal, to not harm, to live their own lives, what ends up happening? Well, they work together, they cooperate, they do things for each other, very neighborly understanding of each other. And so, society is boomed and prosperity increases. Because society is built from relationships and agreements. All of them require trust. If you are shaking hands on a contract, excuse me. Anyways, back to the point. If you're shaking hands on a contract, you probably agree with the person that this thing should be done, or these stipulations should be followed, and there's a level of trust required to say, this person will do this, this, and this, and I will do this, this, and this. If that's not there, if it doesn't exist, what ends up happening? Everyone suffers because no one trusts anyone. That's the basics of it. But in a high-trust society, everyone trusts each other. So, not everyone, but most people do, so generally things are good. What about in this little thief world, where people run around like this and just take their $800. Well, let's say that there's low trust, assuming I can spell. Apparently I cannot. But assuming spelling is not an issue, what we get is ruin. That's what you get from it. If you have everyone distrusting each other, survival instincts kick in. People act according to what they understand to be best for themselves. Sometimes that means stealing. Other times it means poorly drawing a bandana. Other times it means starting shops. The issue is, when you have low trust, this is less common, and instead you see this. Because people don't trust each other to actually help each other out. Why'd I stick my neck out for someone if they could backstab me in 2 seconds? It's probably the biggest flaw I would see with any potential libertarian society is the fact that our trust in each other is so low right now. Any transition to a libertarian society would require literal decades of building blocks to achieve the trust necessary for such a system. But it does also come with unfortunate effects for the economy as well. You could steal something, sure, you're richer technically, but society isn't. In fact, it loses money trying to stop you. And as much as you may hate to say it, it's money well spent if it's to stop people from stealing, because think about what this means in the long term. You have $800, so let's say you spend a bit. In fact, let's say you spend $50. Okay? Well, now you have $750. And then someone else steals it. Because, hey, they need that money too. Well, that money's going to go down and down and down until eventually it hits 0. 0% of the wealth is remaining, and all these thieves along the way had a lot of extra costs associated with the energy needed to steal it, the energy needed to resist arrest, and the energy needed to reestablish rapport and opinion and trust. This theft that continually occurs, it actively makes the lives of everyone participating harder. Because they have to deal with this, and simultaneously, the pie they're stealing from is getting smaller and smaller since they're shrinking it through their actions. And thus, they get less profit, and they get less just overall. What would be even better is if this 800 never left the store, because this would never happen. There's resources to deal with them being a criminal, whether rehabilitation or incarceration, would not be spent, and these relationships would be maintained and trust would grow. And so if the person needed that $50, well, maybe the pen store owner could set up a little charity, help the people with that $50 they needed. Or potentially their neighbors could reach out and say, hey, you need the $50 for this? Sure, we have that in excess. We'll help you out. Charity is the way to make up for it, not theft. Because theft fundamentally drains the resources of a society. It reduces trust, just like other crimes. Every crime, to some extent, unless you're dealing with a really, really authoritarian state that bans things like free speech or the natural rights is what I'm thinking of. Unless it bans natural rights, fundamentally, the enforcement of law is expensive but necessary. Because to allow a person to violate another's rights is to allow them to basically run roughshod over society. They are superior, technically, and in practice. Even if legally we don't want to acknowledge them as such, a person who can ignore the rules and do whatever they want is superior in practical terms. And that's not a good thing if that person is engaging in damaging activities. You need to bring them down a peg. So crime becomes a necessary evil. Let's say not crime. Enforcement of law and order to stop crime becomes a necessary evil. I am just horribly misspeaking today. I am sorry. I am dumb. Anyways, regardless, when you have these situations, when you have trust, you naturally want to preserve it because high trust is prosperous. It leads to greatness because people are willing to go out and stick their limbs out for each other. They aren't willing to do that if they don't trust anyone, and so ruin follows. But they are willing if they do trust. So these thieves, every single one of them, by engaging in crime, hurt society. And so crime must be stopped. Law must be enforced. That is reality. You may not like that reality, but it's reality. In other words, don't steal the $800 and also do better with bandanas because I swear I'm going to get called something for this and I hate it. I just am really bad at drawing bandanas. Anyways, have a good one and goodbye.